Hello everyone! Today we are going to show you something truly special, the suspension system of a very exotic vehicle. Please excuse my accent. Our company has German roots and my English is bad, but I will do the best to explain everything clearly. We have received a set of rear adaptive Nivomat shock absorbers from a Bentley Arnage. This model was produced between 1998 and 2009. Let's start with a few keywords, key facts about this suspension. These shock absorbers are manufactured by Sachs and are known as adaptive Nivomat. They are hydropneumatic shock absorbers based on the principle similar to the hydraulic suspension systems used by Citroën. It's important to understand that in a standard suspension system, the right height of the vehicle depends on the springs, not the shock absorbers. When the car is loaded, it lowers, which affects handling and stability. The Nivomat systems is designed to compensate for this. It maintains the correct right height automatically. In one single unit, we have an adaptive shock absorber for damping and a hydraulic mechanism that acts like a jack, adjusting the vehicle height. The shock absorber is supplied with pressurized oil here, and by changing the pressure, we change the static load it can generate. Here you can also see the two solenoid valves. They control the damping stiffness by regulating the oil flow, acting as a bypass system. So these shock absorbers are not only self-leveling but also adaptive. They can change their stiffness dynamically. As far as we know, the shock absorbers are no longer in production. If you want to buy a new one, it's simply not possible. So if you want to preserve the collector value of your car, the only option is to repair the original components. Now you can see the shock absorber mounted on our dyno test bench. To properly test it, we combine two systems. A dyno bench that measures damping performance and our custom hydraulic test bench. On the hydraulic test bench, we use a pump from Mercedes active body control systems. The active body control is the next generation of advanced hydraulic suspension developed by ZF Sachs, and we will talk about in another video. This pump can generate up to 200 bar, allowing us to simulate our real operating conditions. We also added a hydraulic accumulator, or Druckspeicher in German. The component is extremely important and we will show you why. The customer's complaint is oil leakage. These shock absorbers are very robust and rarely produce noise. The most common issue is leakage. Now we start the test. We start the and what we see, it's enough. Okay, stop it. The working diagram is terrible. It's leak oil very hard, so we can show you more test after repair. Now let's take a look inside. This is the piston rod with the working piston, the main damping element. Here are the solenoids which control the stiffness by regulating the oil flow. And this is the guide, the main cause of the leakage. It seals the oil inside the system. This shock absorber almost never fails in the piston itself. The problem is always in the guide and its sealing. The key difference between a standard shock absorber and a hydraulic one is exactly this sealing system. Standard shock absorber use rubber HNBR seals, while hydraulic cylinders typically use Teflon-based seals. Each type has its advantages. Here comes the tricky part. At first look, these systems look simple and easy to repair. But in reality, almost no one manages to repair them properly. After most repairs, they start leaking again within 6 or 7 months. Why? Because of extreme number of working cycles. A hydraulic cylinder on a forklift, for example, has a fewer cycles compared to the shock absorbers. This difference is roughly 1 to 100. A car shock absorber operates over 100 or even more cycles than a standard hydraulic cylinder. This means standard seals reach their lifetime limit very quickly. Another critical factor is pressure spikes. The most hydraulic systems operate at high pressure but stable pressure. In a car, when you hit a sharp bump, the shock absorber experiences sudden pressure spikes. These spikes can overload the seal and cause leakage. So, the seal in these shock absorbers must withstand extreme pressure spikes, very high frequency, and over 100 million cycles. So this is what makes the shock absorbers so unique. After extensive research and testing, we finally sourced German-made seals that exceed the original specifications. They are produced by the same manufacturer as the OEM components. After our repair, leakage is no longer an issue. Here it is again, the shock absorber on the dynamometer. We will perform several tests. First, we run it so you can see how it works, what the graph looks like, and whether there are any leaks. As you can see, it operates perfect. Symmetrical graph with very good damping in bend and rebound. Now we will change its stiffness to demonstrate the adaptive functions. We will apply electricity on these solenoids and run test again. Everything works exactly as original. You can see how softer is the shock absorber now. So all adaptive functions are still present. As already said, every hydraulic shock absorber must have a properly functioning pressure accumulator. Now we will perform the same test, but we will simulate a failed pressure accumulator, where the nitrogen gas is gone. You can see the pressure spike in the hydraulic system, and how the pressure with failed pressure accumulator. This is why please always make sure such shock absorbers are used with new properly functioning original accumulators. Using a low quality accumulators can affect the behavior of the hydraulic system. Now we move to the final test. At the moment, you can see the static load of the shock absorber. As we say, these shock absorbers are self-leveling system. The pressure in the shock absorber is zero, so it generates no static force. Here you see inbound 0 kilograms. Now we will apply oil pressure and you will see how the static load increases the pressure and the pressure rise. This demonstrates how the shock absorber works like a hydraulic jack. More and more. Finally, we test the shock rebuild at pressure above 200 bars. We have performed all these hard tests to ensure that the shock absorber not only works perfectly, but also withstands pressure far beyond factory specifications. This is what a real repair of the shock absorbers looks like. If you liked our video, try to find something similar online. You won't. It turns out that only we show these things. That's because we are true specialists in this field. We are proud of our work and in the solution we provide. Goodbye and see you next time.